Okay, we want to tell you a story tonight. It's an account that came from one of our listeners. And it's chilling. It really makes you pause and question the unseen world that might be right alongside us. It's about how sometimes things that seem simple, maybe even forgotten promises, can lead to really terrifying outcomes, especially when it involves something like a spirit house.
And this story definitely touches on some deep traditional beliefs about spirit houses, yes, but also about the vital importance of getting the rituals right, you know, respecting what those entail.
So our story starts near a river, the G River. There's this 2-story house there belonging to a man named Nua A. It wasn't just any house, it was actually a gift from his mother. It used to be his grandmother's place. He'd been living there maybe 2 years, kind of settling in. And then nature just unleashed. A huge flood hit the area. The Chi River, usually calm, just swelled up and became this destructive force. Yeah. The water rose incredibly high. It almost completely covered the first floor of Nua A's house. It stayed like that for days, submerged. When the water finally went down, the damage was just awful. The whole lower level, mostly wood, was ruined. Thick mud everywhere, warped beams, rot setting in. The house looked, well, derelict, like something abandoned.
Yeah, events like that, major floods or disasters, they don't just damage buildings, they can really impact the feeling of a place, you know, almost scar the environment in ways that feel unsettling.
But standing there, next to the ruined house, was the old spirit house, made of cement. It had been there for, over 10 years. The family felt it had protected them, especially, back when they were good about making offerings. And through this massive flood, the shrine itself had only minor damage. A broken tip, maybe a couple of figures missing. It seemed like it had fared better than the main house.
Almost defiant in a way.
Right. But its time was up. The final blow wasn't the flood. It was an accident. Nua A was cutting down a big tamarind tree nearby. And in just a horrible moment, the tree went the wrong way. It fell right onto the old spirit house, completely destroyed it, shattered the cement, crushed whatever figures were left. Just gone. Nua A was understandably really upset, full of regret. His mother had set that shrine up, you see, and now he felt he'd destroyed this sacred thing. He knew the tradition, though. A broken shrine isn't valid anymore. It can't house the spirit properly. So he did what you're supposed to do. Gathered up all the broken pieces, put them in a sack, and took them to be left respectfully near a temple. Sort of like retiring it properly.
Exactly. In many traditions, that's the belief. A damaged or old spirit house has served its purpose. You dispose of it with respect, and then you need to replace it to ensure that spiritual protection continues for the home.
So the family agreed. Yeah, a new spirit house was absolutely necessary. The plan seemed simple enough at first. Nua A would just go back to the spot, light some incense, and basically tell the local spirits, hey, we're putting up a new shrine for you next week. A promise was made. But then life happened. The house repairs were huge, a massive job. Cleaning the mud, fixing the wood, replanting the garden. It just took all their time, all their focus. And somewhere in all that chaos, everyone completely forgot about the promise. They missed the date they'd set to put up the new shrine. Just slipped their minds. Until that night. The night before the day they were supposed to have done it. Nua A had this dream. It wasn't just a regular dream. He said it felt incredibly real, palpable. He dreamt he was lying there, sort of half awake, half asleep, that state. And this figure walked into the room, an old man dressed all in white robes, moving slowly, quietly towards him. He didn't look scary at first, just present. He came right up to Nua A and spoke. Calm voice, but very direct. His message was simple. Don't forget the promise. Set it up for us too. Nua A woke up instantly, heart racing, covered in sweat. The dream felt so real, like a genuine visitation. Not just his mind playing tricks. He immediately told his wife, told the family. And that dream, it was like a shock to the system. A terrifying reminder they had forgotten. They'd broken their promise to the spirits. Everyone agreed this was serious. A definite sign they'd messed up. They had to fix it, and fast. And this time, they needed to do it right. Hire a professional for the ceremony. But finding the right person, that was another hurdle. They didn't personally know any Brahmin practitioners. A relative mentioned someone, gave them a number they found literally written on a wall somewhere.
Not exactly a glowing recommendation.
No, the relative even said, look, I've never used him. I don't know anything about him. But they felt desperate, so Nua A called the number. He ended up speaking to the Brahmin's disciple. The disciple told him, first thing, go buy a spirit house yourself. Choose one you feel good about. So Nua A went to a shop, looked around, found one he liked, and then the shop owner said something kind of unsettling, almost prescient. He warned Nua A, be really careful who you get to do the ceremony. Not everyone can do it right. And he added, if you run into any trouble afterwards, you come back and see me.
Wow. That's quite a specific warning.
Yeah. Nua Eric probably just brushed it off at the time. He called the disciple back, said, okay, I've got the spirit house, and the disciples scheduled the ceremony for the very next day. Nua Eric felt, okay, finally, relief. They were fixing it. So the next day, the Brahmin shows up. He looks at the site, checks the time, whatever he does, and then declares the day's no good, unsuitable time. He postpones the whole thing, says he needs to find a better date, wait another 6 days. He did do a couple of small things, apparently picked up some soil from the spot before leaving, but basically, delay.
Which must have been frustrating after the urgency they felt.
Absolutely. Okay, so 6 days later, they prepare again. Simple offerings this time. The Brahmin comes back, performs the main consecration ritual. And after it was done, Nua F felt this huge weight lift.
Right.
Done. Promise kept, ritual performed by a professional. Everything should be fine now. They were safe. That safety lasted less than a day. That very night, Nua woke up in absolute terror. He couldn't move. There was this crushing weight on his chest. He could barely breathe. He managed to look down, and he saw feet, a pair of feet wearing gold anklets pressing right down onto his chest.
Gold anklets, that's specific.
Very specific. But above the ankles, just darkness. A blurry, indistinct shape. He couldn't see a body, couldn't see a face. Just this overwhelming pressure and the sight of those feet. He was paralyzed with fear. Couldn't scream, couldn't even twitch. Then the figure, it kind of shifted, twisted its feet, pointing them right at his face. And then it leaned down. A hand came out of the darkness and clamped over his mouth, stopping any sound he might have tried to make. He was trapped, utterly terrified. He just started thinking of his family, praying desperately in his mind for help, for release. And just like that, in the middle of his prayer, the figure vanished. Gone. He jolted fully awake, gasping, drenched in sweat. Sleep was impossible after that. He just prayed for the rest of the night.
You know, the feelings he described, the pressure, the paralysis, being unable to speak, those are very common elements in what people call sleep paralysis experiences.
Right.
But that visual element, the distinct figure with the gold anklets,
Yeah.
that's highly unusual and pushes it beyond a simple sleep phenomenon, suggesting something else might be at play.
He was completely shaken. The next day, he told his sister, who was the listener who sent us this story, her mother, about the attack. Described the figure, the gold anklets. He was so confused, he thought, could it be the local spirit? It felt large, not like a child spirit, a cumin or anything. And gold anklets.
Yeah.
Sometimes deities are shown with those. But why attack him? Why now, after you'd finally put up the shrine? It made no sense.
The timing is definitely puzzling from his perspective then.
His sister listened carefully. Her advice seemed practical. Go back to the new shrine, light incense again, ask the spirit directly what it wants, and, importantly, ask it to please communicate clearly. Maybe in a dream, but not in a terrifying way like that. So Nua did that. He went, he prayed, he asked. But nothing happened. Days went by, no more dreams, no strange noises, no weird feelings. The fear started to fade a bit. Maybe it was just a one-off nightmare. Stress. He gradually let his guard down, stopped worrying quite so much. Meanwhile, the house renovations were finally finished. It was a big deal. To celebrate and bless the newly repaired home, they arranged for monks to come and perform a house blessing ceremony. The monks went through the whole house, the grounds, chanted the blessings, sprinkled holy water. They even blessed the new spirit house. They didn't mention anything feeling wrong or out of place. Nua Elin felt even more reassured. Surely the monks would have sensed if something was amiss, right?
One would hope so, yes. It sounds like they felt things were finally settling down.
Exactly. But that feeling didn't last long. Later that same day, the day of the blessing, around dusk, maybe 6 p.m., a strange old woman appeared outside their gate. She looked, well, messy. Untidy hair, wearing a traditional fatum, the sarong older women often wear. But she seemed really tired, kind of distressed, pacing back and forth by the fence. Finally, she stopped at the gate, peered in, and called out, her voice weak, "Is anyone home?" Nua A's wife, Nisi, who was pregnant at the time, heard her from the living room. She went to the gate. The old woman was leaning heavily on the fence, looking like she was about to collapse. She begged Nisi for some water, said she was just exhausted, felt faint. She explained she had been fishing down by the river, fell asleep somehow, and when she woke up, it was getting dark. She realized she had a really long walk home and just didn't have the strength. Nisi felt immediate sympathy. The woman looked genuinely unwell, sweaty, pale, weak. You wouldn't suspect anything sinister, just someone in need. So Nisi invited her in to sit down, rest, gave her water, even some snacks. The new AA came downstairs a little later, saw this stranger in his house. He was a bit surprised, maybe vaguely recognized her pacing outside earlier, but his wife had let her in. She looked harmless, so he didn't question it right away. Nisi sat talking with the old woman. Time passed. It got darker outside, probably past 7 p.m. by now. Nisi started to feel concerned about the old lady walking home alone in the pitch dark. She said to Nua A, "Maybe we should drive her home." Nua A agreed. Seemed like the right thing to do. He just said, "Okay, let me just grab a quick shower first, then we'll go." So Nua A heads off to the bathroom. It was located near enough to the living room, he mentioned, that you could usually hear sounds, conversation, the TV maybe. He turned on the shower, started washing, and then silence. A sudden, complete, eerie silence fell over the house. No talking, no TV hum, nothing. It just went dead quiet while he was in the shower.
Oh, that's unnerving.
Totally. He felt it immediately. This wasn't normal quiet. He turned the shower off, listened hard. Still nothing. Just this heavy, unnatural silence. His first thought, maybe they stepped outside. But the feeling was wrong. Dread started creeping in. He finished showering as fast as he could, threw on clothes. He walked out of the bathroom, towards the living room, and the sight that met him, it just froze him. The old woman, the frail, weak old woman, was straddling his pregnant wife, Nisi. Nisi was lying unconscious on the floor. Her hands were limp, her pregnant belly completely exposed. And the old woman, her appearance had changed. She turned towards Nua A, opened her mouth impossibly wide, revealing this long, black, glistening tongue dripping with saliva.
Oh, no.
And she was using it. She was licking Nisi's pregnant belly, flicking her tongue back and forth across the skin. Her dirty hands were also stroking Nisi's belly like she was performing some action. Nua A just snapped. Shock turned to rage. He screamed, something like, "What are you doing to my wife, you old hag? Get off her!" He ran towards her, fully intending to kick her, to attack her. But the old woman moved with this terrifying, unnatural speed. She wasn't frail anymore. She leaped, actually jumped, clean out of the living room window, and as she did, she let out this horrible, maniacal laugh. Nua A instinctively chased her a few steps outside. He saw her run into the dark forest behind the house with incredible speed and agility. Then he stopped himself, realized his priority, and rushed back to Nisi. He started shouting for help, for neighbors. They helped him carry Nisi to the car, rushed her straight to the hospital. At the hospital, Nua A called his family. His sister, the listener's mother, came immediately. But then came another shock. The sister spoke to the doctor, and the doctor asked her, basically, if Nua A abused his wife, because Nisi had multiple bruises all over her pregnant belly. Bruises, the doctor said, were serious, potentially risking the pregnancy. His sister was horrified. She defended Nua A vehemently. No, absolutely not. He would never. She then went straight to Nua A, told him what the doctor said, demanded to know what happened to cause those bruises. Nua A was hesitant at first. I mean, how do you explain what he saw? He was afraid she wouldn't believe him. But she pressed him, emphasizing the danger to the baby. So finally he told her. He described seeing the old woman, the licking, the stroking of the belly. His sister listened, got goosebumps all over, she said. But she believed him, especially considering local folklore about, well, things like pop spirits and just how bizarre the whole thing was. She shuddered, thinking what could have happened if Nua A hadn't walked in right then. Thankfully, after checks, the doctor eventually confirmed Nisi and the baby were going to be okay. They were allowed to go home later that night. Back home, once things calmed down a bit, they gently asked Nisi, "Do you remember what happened with the old woman?" And her memory, it was chillingly clear. She remembered everything up to the point she passed out. She remembered the old woman asking question after question about the baby, how many months, boy or girl, due date, all while staring, just intensely staring, at her belly. Nisi said she felt something was really wrong then, the way the woman stared, and the way she kept licking her lips, like she was starving, looking at food. And the very last thing Nisi heard, right before she lost consciousness, the old woman leaned in close and whispered, "Looks delicious." Then she opened her mouth, stuck out that long tongue, and made a gesture with her hand, Nisi said, like she was about to scoop something out of her belly and eat it.
That description. The focus on the pregnancy, the staring, the lip licking, and especially that phrase, "looks delicious," coupled with the gesture. It aligns disturbingly well with folklore about the pop spirit. It's believed to be an entity, often taking the form of an old woman that consumes internal organs, often targeting vulnerable individuals like pregnant women or the sick. The details are quite specific.
It's horrifying.
Yeah.
So after all this, the dream, the anklet attack, now this direct assault on Nisi, Nua A, and his sister knew they needed serious spiritual intervention. They went to see a local monk known for his insight. They laid out the whole story, everything. The flood, the broken shrine, the forgotten promise, the first dream, the Brahmin they hired, the delayed ceremony, the gold anklet figure, the blessing, the old woman, the attack, Nisi's memory. The monk listened patiently, asked for the house details like the address or number. Then he gave his assessment. He said the house was vulnerable. Why? Because the spirit house they'd set up wasn't actually protecting them. It didn't have the proper local deity residing in it. Instead, it was inhabited by, well, ghosts.
area.
Wandering spirits.
So it was occupied, but by the wrong things.
Exactly. And because it lacked a true guardian, it acted like a beacon, attracting other negative entities, like the pop spirit that attacked Nisi. The monk even added they were actually lucky the ghosts in the shrine hadn't started haunting them directly too. Nue was confused. He said, "But we hired a Brahmin. We did the ritual." And this is where the monk dropped the crucial piece of information. He explained the ceremony itself was flawed. The problem was the Brahmin. The monk believed that the Brahmin they hired had probably broken his precepts. The term used was siltake, meaning he wasn't living according to the essential religious or moral rules.
Which, in this belief system, is critical.
Right. Because he had broken his precepts, he lacked the spiritual purity and authority needed to conduct the ceremony properly. So the monk suggested, either by mistake, or maybe even intentionally, who knows, this Brahmin hadn't invited the true local land spirit. Instead, he'd basically opened the door for random wandering ghosts or other entities to move in. The monk told him, "You need someone who genuinely follows the precepts, someone spiritually clean to do this right." And then, seeing their situation, he offered to help them sort it out.
It really emphasizes that belief, doesn't it? That the power of the ritual isn't just in the words or actions, but deeply connected to the spiritual state, the conduct of the person performing it. If their precepts are broken, the connection is broken, or worse, corrupted.
It seems so. So with the monk's guidance, they found a new, truly auspicious date. And this time they didn't hire an outsider. The person who performed the main ritual was Nue's sister's husband. Why him? Because according to the monk's assessment of the family, he was the only one who strictly observed the 5 precepts. He had the necessary spiritual purity. The monks supervised the whole thing, guided him through it. They set up a new, actually larger spirit house this time, and had another proper house blessing ceremony as well. Okay, so about a week after the ceremony, the one done correctly, Nue had another dream. And guess who appeared? The same old man in the white robes from the very first dream.
Ah, the original messenger.
Exactly. But his tone was different this time. He actually thanked Nue for finally getting the shrine set up properly. He admitted he'd been angry before. Not just because the old shrine was destroyed, but because Nue didn't keep his promise on time. And then, critically, because that flawed ceremony had invited those wandering ghosts into the space that was meant for him, the true guardian. The spirit then gave Nue instructions. He said, from now on, just make offerings on the major Buddhist holy days, the one Prayai. Do that. And he promised he would protect the house and the family properly. Very well, he said. And Nue has done exactly that ever since. Makes his offerings faithfully on one Prayai, upholding his end of the agreement. And the result. Since that correct ceremony, since that final dream and the agreement with the true spirit, nothing. No more strange events, no attacks, no scary occurrences at the house. It just stopped. It's quite a story, isn't it? It really makes you think about a few things. Firstly, that belief in how absolutely critical the person performing a sacred ritual is. Their purity, their intention. It seems, in this account, it made all the difference between inviting protection and, well, inviting trouble. It also highlights the potential pitfalls of, hiring practitioners you don't really know. A flawed ritual didn't just fail, but apparently made things worse.
Yeah.
Opened a door to negativity. And on a more mundane level, it's a pretty stark reminder about inviting strangers into your home, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially when there are vulnerable people present, like Nisi being pregnant. You just never know.
Absolutely. It's a narrative that weaves together these layers of traditional belief, personal choices, actions, and these really unnerving, potentially supernatural encounters. It certainly underscores the value placed on caution and discernment, both in spiritual matters and just in everyday interactions.
And it makes you wonder, as the original story pointed out, sometimes maybe that spirit house isn't housing the protector you think it is. Maybe it's worth considering what or who might actually be residing there. Perhaps take a fresh look at your own spirit house, if you happen to have one. If stories like this resonate with you, if they make you think about the unseen world, well, you're definitely among friends here. Please do like, share, and subscribe to Horror Doc's channel. We appreciate your support. Goodbye for now.